Kevin May, PhocusWire, PundIT Show number 18, our regular series of chats with pundits and experts from around the industry. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Miriam Moscovici, Senior Director, Research and Innovation at BCD Travel.
That's right.
I can say that in one breath. Andres Fabris, CEO of Traxo. Right, thank you. So you've taken a bit of a star turn because the last time you were on this, which was PundIT Show number 16, was when we were in Los Angeles.
Right.
And you said, just before the camera started rolling, that what happened?
Somebody quoted one of the things I said on the last PundIT Show, that I think it was like the smartest thing he'd heard in 20 years of attending conferences. And I think he was referring to the fact that I was pretty cynical on the whole personalization and how the lengths we go through in the leisure space to personalize the experience for the traveler. Given that most travelers outside of our bubble here at Phocuswright travel once a year, and it's Disney World usually, right? And then he followed up saying something about, the fact that I'm constantly talking about that nobody's catering towards senior citizens, right?
Okay.
Baby boomers are the retirees. They're spending the most money.
It's on my list here, boomers, that we're going to
Really?
come back to.
Okay.
Because we got into a good discussion about boomers last time. We're going to see if Andres
We should found a company right here at this table.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
Because I think we could have a good discussion about it. Right, so, well done on getting quoted and having the best thought from...
Yeah, random Twitter quotes.
As we said, if it's on Twitter, it's got to be true.
Yep.
Right? Your president notwithstanding. Okay. Right, so we're in day 2 here at Phocuswright Europe. What did you see yesterday? What was any good? Actually, we'll start with you, Andres, because we've heard from me already.
I sat in through a couple of sessions. I grew up sailing. I was pretty impressed with the boating GDS.
Yep.
Really like those guys.
Zizou,
yeah. They aggregate. We're seeing like aggregation of all kinds of content. Started with bus services, rail services, so I think it's kind of a next natural extension.
Okay.
Of what they're up to.
Would you invest in it?
I would.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's it's a fragmented market. Good barrier to entry. Once you aggregate all that data, it's very difficult for somebody else to come along and.
Do they need a lot of money to do that, do you think?
They seem to have made quite a bit of progress already with limited, fairly limited funds. I think they've raised about 10 million.
Okay.
So I like that business quite a bit.
So you could probably double that,
Yeah, and do quite well, extend the distribution.
Okay.
Not me personally, no.
Oh, okay. Right, I thought we had a scoop. Anyway, right, okay, thank you. Miriam, yesterday, what did you say?
I agree. I think Zizou is great. I think that, number one, she had a lot of energy on stage, right? And that kind of feeds out into the audience. We're all on the edge of our seat. They had a lot of success. I also think it's a category that's really ripe for aggregation. I happen to be a sailor, so I have experience on boats out there. And I did mention that I was a little terrified that anybody can rent a 40-foot sailboat and just put it out on the water.
Even you?
Even me. I'm not a skipper, so I wouldn't even try it. I trim sails. But I think that's great. To me, any type of leisure travel business that exposes more to consumers is exciting for me. I say this all the time. I believe we're in the world peace business, right? Not the travel business. We're in the world peace business, which means that whatever we can do as a community, as organizations, as companies to expose human beings to other human beings and experiences around the world, enrich their lives by traveling, makes us kinder, more gentler, more generous people. And so, this category of boat rentals or chartering with skippers, et cetera, is I think a space where a lot of people don't have access to, right? We think about in this leisure space, we think big cruise ships, and then we think maybe Disney, and your European vacation. And so to think that we could expose by kind of democratizing it and aggregating this content to a whole group of people, I think it's really exciting.
Do you think other people have the same opinion of you as you about the world peace business?
Well, I'm in the business travel industry, so
right.
I think that in business travel, I don't think anybody can argue that we are absolutely in the world peace business. If we can bring, 2 people to trade, I mean, that's why you business travel is to trade, to educate, to trade, to share your subject matter expertise. If we can help people around the world trade and do business together, I 100% believe they're less likely to drop freedom bombs on each other. Okay. So, yeah, absolutely, I think we're in the world peace business.
So what business are you in then? Are you in the world peace business, or are you...
I think of it a little bit more tactically, but yeah, I like that perspective. It's easy to lose focus and kind of get stuck in the minutia, because we aggregate travel booking data, right? That's kind of how we talk, how I think about it.
And you do it really well.
Thank you. But it's the whole connecting people and the reason that people travel. It's that's a compelling perspective, and we should take a
Yeah,
step
I am
back and think about that
100%
more
less
often.
likely to fight with you outside because we know each other.
That's a relief. Because you could probably beat the
Both
shit
of us.
out of me,
Both
let's
of us.
face
I
it.
look forward to it. Commercial break. We'll take care of that
apart
later.
from sailing thing, anything else?
I want to come back just 1 second on the sailing piece because
We really like sailing.
like literally one of my most memorable experiences ever was taking a trip to visit my father's home country. He's from Croatia, and sailing along the coast of the Adriatic for a week. Like literally, as I think back, so this opportunity to be able to instantly book those types of experiences, and then all of the add-on services, even if you don't sail your own boat, to be able to get a skipper, to be able to get a chef. It sounded like the average purchase price was 4,000 euros, so it's a high-ticket item, a memorable experience, and it's something that, I would personally use.
I would say that, in general, I think the Battleground was fun, and I don't always attend the Battleground sessions that are separate, right? But here we have the Battleground on the main stage as we start the show, and there's a fresh, exciting kind of attitude coming from those Battleground competitors because they are early stage. They are not as seasoned necessarily.
It's seasoned. Could you also say that they're perhaps not quite as jaded by it all? Because
Absolutely not as jaded. Yeah, they're still fresh and looking to the future, right? It's like everything's a rainbow. But you feel that, right? You feel that in the audience. You feel as you're watching them, you think you're rooting for them, right? Like, you go on with yourself. So I think that for me is exciting that they combine the Battleground here because it gives us an opportunity to see less polished, less kind of just newer entrants, really fresh attitude on stage. So I think that's exciting. And I do think Nanny Bag is interesting, right? We continue to see startups mess around with the area of logistics of your stuff.
There was one last year that did very well as well.
Yeah, and there's one here as well that didn't compete, but there's a stacker or a stasher or something. Yeah. Right, so there's plenty of these, but they're still dealing with the fact of what do I do with my stuff? Whether it's I pack it in a, with my stuff, whether I pack it in a module and I FedEx it, or whether I need to store it somewhere, or whether I want it logistically handled for me. There's still a lot of action around how do we get our luggage around, how do we do logistics of our stuff.
So they should do a thing with the boat people, so when you're on the boat you can't take all your luggage with you, you can store it at one of their places.
Yeah, right? You put it in a tube and you float it behind the boat.
Oh.
Ooh la la.
Okay. So are you still at the bright and optimistic phase, or are you in the jaded phase now?
No, bright and optimistic.
Yeah.
We see a lot of opportunity in our particular space. We're discovering all of these new uses of travel data that we had never anticipated.
Right.
We had started with our own offering on the consumer side, and then once we pivoted over to the B2B side, it just all these different use cases that we had never considered. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, sure, we can do that. We can power expense reports. We can do travel data parsing so that you can get refunds for delayed flights. We can power all these different automated services that will ultimately make travel a little bit easier for folks.
Okay. Can you see why that jaded thing does come so quickly, though, to some people?
How long do you think it takes? I think it's 10 years, and I think you start to your thinking starts to kind of converge with.
And it gets hard, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
No, it does. And there's you come to discover some of the complexity behind the scenes, and you start to understand a little bit of why the industry is structured the way it is, and why the big players have the power that they do. Mm-hmm. Kind of emphasizing the theme of one of the themes of this conference.
If you could change one thing about the structure of the industry that you just referenced, what would it be? And then we'll come to you with the same question, Miriam.
Yeah, democratizing the data in the background. Just when you come to realize, okay, well, there's all of these applications, but at the end of the day, it's still kind of powered by the same 3 GDSs behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And that makes it a little hard to innovate when you've got to depend on these systems. I worked at Sabre for a bunch of years, and so systems that haven't seen a lot of innovation, as much innovation at the core, but are fundamental to supporting the industry infrastructure. So I think, democratizing access to the data. We talk a lot about APIs. I think that's a key kind of wave of the future, is because it'll give more folks access to that critical information to do creative things with it.
Okay.
For me, I think that when we have some innovation around customer acquisition, I think it's going to be interesting. I keep waiting for the next new customer acquisition method, because you know what I'm saying here, right? I'm saying that the first question that every innovator is going to get on stage is, how are you going to acquire customers? And is 70% of your VC money going to go directly to Facebook and Google, right? Yeah. And
worse still, just PR.
Right. And so, I think that there are new models for customer acquisition that I'm excited to see some of these startups come in, whether it's, there's some tried and true models, right, for customer acquisition. You can pay for advertising, you can buy billboards, you can give away your stuff for free and do the premium free stuff, right? There's all sorts of, but I still think that there's innovation to be made because of the pressures and costs and customer acquisition. So that type of thing excites me.
Is it in a different type of media, do you think? Is it,
or is it a different service model or business model? Recently I've seen an interesting startup look at strategic partnerships, right? So they're trying to build a digital TMC, a digital corporate travel management company, but they are looking at it by giving away the expense tool and partnering with payment solutions, right? Travel Bank is who I'm talking about, right? Really interesting method, the old Amex method, right, of American Express card passing a lead over to the corporate travel management side. So those types of, lead generation or those types of customer acquisition methods are again, they're not new, but they're new again, right? So I'm looking for those types of things. How are they acquiring customers? You can dump all your money into Google and Facebook or TV ads or billboards in San Francisco, but there are other methods.
There's a new method. Well, it's not necessarily new. When I say, you'll say, well, that doesn't sound new, but I'm seeing kind of new applications of it, which is getting travel intent data out of the inbox. So if you think of it, Google Trips is scanning your Gmail inbox. Yeah. Apple is starting to scan your Apple mailbox, putting it on your calendar. Microsoft is scanning your inbox, putting it on the calendar. Google's putting it into Trips and Maps and a couple of other applications. There's some other folks that are getting that intent data out of the inbox. So rather than paying SEO, SEM, TV, to know where that traveler is going to be because they've already made the first booking, and instead of having to guess at it based on browsing behavior or guess at it based on other signals, shopping behavior, they're saying, oh, I now know you're going to be in this market, on this location, on this date, and frankly, I know your prior booking history because I can, I've been scanning your inbox in the background, and so I understand things like preferences, brand preferences, average star ratings for hotels, average price paid, location, all these interesting things. So I think we're going to see some interesting innovation around customer acquisition, but making the inbox smarter and smarter, and then using that to ultimately put better product, better fit recommendations in front of the traveler. Yeah,
because the likes of Expedia Group and Booking.com will probably be dying to find a new method of not spending $10.4 billion a year and giving it to Google, who's competing against them.
Exactly. And one that frankly doesn't, on a relative cost basis, doesn't cost that much because you're just using these kind of smart applications. And it's, I'd argue, extremely high quality information.
Hot leads.
Because, exactly. You now know that person is precisely when they're in market. Right. And you know what they're missing from their trip.
Mm-hmm. I think we're just scratching the surface. I think, a couple more Phocuswrights. I think we're going to see some of these new customer acquisition methods start coming out. I'm excited to see them. I'm excited to learn from people way smarter than me.
So the theme of this year's event is Empires on the Edge.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Sweet.
Haven't you seen the marketing collateral on PhocusWire for the last 6 months? Yeah. Shame on you. Anyway, now you know.
The Empire's on the Edge.
Empire's on the Edge, and the premise being that sometimes you get so big and you're all
there it is. Okay.
Empire's on the Edge. Thank you. Did you get the close up there? Thank you. It's a podcast. We can be a little bit more free form here. So, the idea being that some companies get so big, but they also get complacent because they get big, and then that gives opportunities for small companies to come along and disrupt them. So do you sense that some of the big players are on that edge yet, or is that wrong?
I work for a big player. I work for BCD Travel, second largest TMC on the planet, and we're the exact opposite of complacent. We've got all sorts of new entrants and new business models who are kind of in our environment now. They are stimulating our clients or stimulating the industry to think differently and talk differently. And so I would say that we're the exact opposite. I mean, we're just heating up, and I think some of the legacy players or the large organizations, I think they're stimulated by all of this. I can't really speak for the leisure space, but I know in our space, it stimulates us, it makes us work harder, and we're lucky in that we've got the foundation that we can take some gambles and do some interesting things. So no, I honestly think the exact opposite, for us at least.
I've been impressed with the way that you guys are innovating.
Oh, stop!
No, and seriously, and the marketplace
Don't
idea
stop.
to where you don't have to do all of it in house.
Right, that's right.
You're basically smartly partnering and integrating in the back end so that the overall solution works.
Right.
I wouldn't say that the big guys are complacent, but I think they just start to slow down. Yeah. And I do business with quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, when I was at Sabre, were we really, this slow as a startup, kind of having been on the corporate side, going over into the startup space and then doing business with a lot of the established players, it just takes a long time.
And when you were there, you didn't realize.
You didn't realize, right? You don't, you just getting pulled in so many different directions, and your attention is diluted across 20 different things. And when you're over on the startup, you're like, I'm on a single track mission to do this one thing, and to try to kind of convince the larger entity that they need that and they need it today, and that there's these impending threats to their business.
Eventually you will get bigger, and then you fall into the same trap.
That's right.
So what do you do to not fall into that trap?
I think smart integrations, knowing a lot about the industry and being able to forecast the next step or see around the corner and kind of prepare for those emerging trends. I think
it requires a certain amount of confidence, right, and strength in your business, because it takes a strong company to create a framework for startups to come into our world and work with us, right? Like you mentioned, we have a framework for this. It's called Solution Source, where we bring in all sorts of technology companies and partners to do business with us. Now, you could go back maybe 10 years ago, and we would have created a giant moat around it and built a nice big wall and said they can't touch our clients. And it could not be more different now. At my company and others like mine, where we are creating a space for them. It's a safe space.
Who triggered that, though? Who just said, okay, we need to stop building a wall around us, and we now need to let the gangway down a little bit?
I think it's. It's
rather than an individual. What was the trigger for it?
I think the trigger was that these startups started coming into the business travel industry, right? Into our, we have our own conferences. Here we're at Phocuswright, but we have our own large conferences that all business travel entities go to. And they started coming on the scene, and we knew that the experience needed to change with travelers, right? Remember, online booking tools launched 20 years ago now, right? 2000 roughly was when online booking tools launched. And in the last 10 years, there's been just such a proliferation of all sorts of services and technology and individual experiences for business travelers that it got to a point where we said, look, we need to focus on our core business, we need to focus on our platforms, and all of these other wonderful things, let's invite them into our ecosystem and let's work together.
But was there any resistance by people that...
Absolutely, but I think it was really initial. I think it's just the fear. But when you put a framework together, I think that it can only help. And our customers love it. They love the fact that we aren't trying to build everything and be everything, that we can, that they can choose among a variety of partners that they can
So what starts happening in the corporate space? So
right.
A startup is deciding on their distribution strategy. Should I partner with one of the established players like the TMC? They have 10,000 clients. Or
right.
should I go and start to try to sell direct to the corporation? And usually early on, you don't know, so you start to do both. And so you're going directly to the corporation, you get some traction, and then you convince a couple of these companies to say, yep, I need your product. And then the company says, okay, well, I got to make sure it fits with the rest of my infrastructure. I'm going to bring in my TMC, who's my kind of integration partner of choice, and you got to make sure you're able to work with them. And so I spoke with Tianis about this specifically. He's like, well, what ended up happening is we got all these requests. Well, we need to work with Rocket Trip and Freebird and Yapta and TripBam. And then suddenly it's like, whoa, we can't integrate with all of these. It can't be a custom integration every time.
Right.
We got to add some processes. We got to make sure that it works. And so we're going to create an infrastructure, launch it, test it, make sure it works, and then you're kind of certified.
Right. Well, and it gives us the ability to be fluid, right? I think any legacy company that creates this kind of framework to allow new entrants or tech players to play, it allows you to be fluid. I think some of the startups that we see today, and don't ask me who they are because I won't admit to it on camera, they are perishable. There are some things that make a lot of sense in 2019 in the United States with the kind of economy that we have that would not make sense if our economy or something else, happens in our world. So, they're perishable, and it gives us the flexibility, right, to be able to say, right now for these 4 years, this is really important. And if it isn't important in 5 years, we haven't built an entire business around it. We can swap and bring in partners as they become relevant in the market.
Okay, right. It wouldn't be a pundit show with you on the panel with us not turning just briefly.
Briefly.
To your
No,
to your
I have a
idea.
20-minute monologue on this topic.
No, you don't. Just for those that don't understand your big idea or know about your big idea, tell us about boomers.com. That's not the official name, by the way.
Somebody buy that real quick and then resell it to me. That's how you make money, actually, is buying domains. That's a good business. I have been talking about this for a couple of years, and really nobody cares but me.
That's why I always bring it up, because it's hilarious.
It's hilarious. Nobody is catering to senior citizens. The majority of the money being spent in leisure travel is baby boomers.
Saga Holidays.
Huh?
Saga Holidays is
True.
boomers focused.
Correct. Yep. And I'd encourage you to look at their size and scope, and it is not even touching a fraction of the opportunity there. The data I understand is that there's $30 trillion in American 401k retirement accounts for baby boomers. In the next 15 years, $30 trillion is coming into the business, and baby boomers will tell you that they're spending about half of their 401k retirement savings on travel. That's what they spend it on.
Yeah.
The older... I could go on.
I know you could. So
Let me.
That's
Let me
conscious
go
of
on.
the time. I've got a question. Based on no research or assumptions.
I've done a lot of research.
Well, I'm doing a lot of assumptions. So, when a person maybe gets to that age, do they want to be serviced by a company that's targeting them because of their age, or do they want to feel youthful and carry on using the service that they did when they were in their middle age?
I don't think that has anything to do with the equation. I think what a baby boomer wants is they want to understand that just like they prioritized legacy savings when they were working to save for retirement, they want somebody to respect their legacy spending for the 10 years of able-bodied travel that they have.
Right.
That's what they're looking for. It's not about feeling young or paragliding or horseback riding or a donkey in the whatever the Grand Canyon. That's not what it's about. It's about being respected for the legacy spending they're going to do for about 10 years.
Right. So, Andres, would you be happy to, banish booking.com and go to oldtraveler.com?
You're almost that age, aren't you?
Almost. Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, a lot more.
He's
grays.
younger than both of us. Come on.
Yeah, I think I would if it's over time. I wouldn't want to become a card-carrying member of AARP just yet.
Good discounts.
Yeah, no. I think some of what Kevin mentioned would kind of kick in, and but yeah, I would want services that cater to my specific needs.
Great. So the last question: would you form a startup with Miriam?
I would.
Sweet.
Probably not that one.
But probably not that one. Okay. So in 6 months,
started and folded in 20 minutes.
We'll reconvene in Florida. I'm sure we'll get you on a pundit show because you're always entertaining. We may get you as your co-founder on as well. So Miriam and Andres, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another pundit show. Thank you.